We now reconvene the meeting with a much lighter room. We now move on to action item F, if the clerk would read.
F is discussion of and possible action on the 2020 proposed City of Topeka operating budget.
City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Governing body, tonight we are set to consider amendments to the 2020 operating budget. Staff and I have presented a balanced budget for your consideration and approval. The budget uses conservative revenue projections due to the current trend in sales tax revenues. Property tax revenues were strong again this year, beating our original projections. The revenue picture is solid, but not enough to keep up with rising expenses. I asked the directors to develop a list of reductions in their budget of 3%. The department directors had to dig deep to develop this list of recommendations. In the end, the revenues came up a little stronger, so the actual percentage of cut in the overall budget was around a little over 1%, which resulted in around $1 million in hard cuts to our budget. Finance Department went through and analyzed the lists of reductions to determine which ones could be made without affecting the service levels of the departments. In other words, we didn't do it as an across-the-board cut. We targeted what we were changing. The reductions were identified and the final budget was created. The budget does not require a mill levy increase in order to balance. A mill levy increase was considered early in the process as a possibility. We should all be aware that a mill levy increase may be required in next year's budget based on current projections for that year's budget. The raise package for non-union management is set at a 1% merit pool in the budget. A few council members have expressed an interest in moving the percentage of the merit pool to 3%. I support providing a larger increase in the merit pool to employees, but would prefer that that the increase not be proposed in amendment, but instead the governing body allow staff and I to work to create savings throughout the year to create the amount of money needed, which is $300,000, to provide the additional salary increases by the end of the year. And now $40,000 through the amendment that was approved. City staff members worked hard at what they do to create efficiencies in their provision of service in many areas of our city. Public Works has patched over 27,000 potholes this year. They have worked hard at a standard for patching those potholes to make them last. They continue to manage numerous projects in the field that will increase our pavement condition index when the year is done. We continue the effort to fix our water lines and other utilities infrastructure. We have a policy that only allows PVC pipe to be used for water main projects of 18 inch or smaller, and we consider it for other a little bit larger sizes. We are using software to analyze our water line, where our water lines need to be replaced next based on age, number of water main breaks on a line, and other factors. We continue to make improvements in our plant to remain in compliance with government regulations for water quality. We are also continuing to work to construct a new biosolids handling facility at the wastewater treatment plant that will work more efficiently and allow us to capture the methane gas to sell it to a natural gas provider. Code enforcement personnel continue to refine and improve their processes. They recently completed an RPI event on their notice and abatement process to make additional improvements to their process. They have handled 5,927 total cases since January 1 of 2019. We are well on our way to passing last year's total of 6,891. They continue to work with homeowners to have homes voluntarily demolished, and also we designate homes that we're looking at that need to be demolished. We're on target to demolish 30 homes this year versus the 15 last year. They continue to provide other programs that provide maintenance to the homes in order to keep people in their home or provide shelter if they are homeless and qualify for the Shelter Plus Care program. Our investment in infrastructure is evident by the many projects we are currently working on or preparing for the construction next year. The Public Works and Utilities departments have good plans and they are executing them. With the commitment made during the capital budget process this year of an additional general obligation bond funding for our roads, we will be able to advance this work further each year. We have an aging infrastructure, and this type of commitment is crucial to the success of the city. Our current budget does not include an increase to the TMTA levy. Based on our rules, this item has not to be considered in this budget process tonight. We will continue to work with TMTA and the council members to consider the mill levy increase in the future. The proposed budget continues to focus on the budget priorities of the governing body a commitment to public safety, improving fiscal sustainability and governance, commitment to developing neighborhoods, investing in infrastructure, and strategic investments towards our quality of life. See, we stand ready for questions or amendments to the proposed budget.
Thank you, City Manager. Before we proceed, we have 3 individuals signed up for public comment. And since I know that the body would like to hear their opinions as we do our deliberation, I would like to invite them to speak first. The first one signed up to speak is Ms. Mikola Saunders.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, governing body. Thank you for allowing public comment this evening. Again, my name is Mikola Saunders. I'm a resident of District 9, and I'm here as a resident of Topeka. I appreciate very much the courageous conversation that you just had about essential services in our community. I came in February. I came a couple weeks ago to talk about what I believe to be an essential service, and that's public transportation. And I understand, and I knew from the agenda, because that charter amendment wasn't on the agenda today, that's not going to change today. The levy for Topeka Metro is not going to change today. But what I need Topeka to know, if you're watching on Facebook, if you're watching on TV, this body cares about essential services. In the experience that I've had in advocating for strong transit in Topeka, I've had the chance to visit with several of you personally, and I've had the chance to visit with staff, and you all have provided resources, you've provided education, and I need Topeka to know that you heard us. The 47 people who stood on the sidewalk in 103-degree heat last week, they don't know that all those conversations happened, right? I think you can do a better job saying out loud to people that when you get feedback, this is the action that you take on it. Because when Mr. Trout, when you say that you're going to continue that conversation, I believe you. And I want the rest of Topeka to believe you too. So you guys know, those of you that I know, you know that I work in communications. And I think Topeka has a bit of an issue when it comes to perception as reality, right? You guys are in the thick of it all the time. As a Topekan who's out there, not at the table, we're not. So when you're doing the homework and the research, it's okay for you to tell us that. And I think people would appreciate that in terms of the way that you all took time to explain why you think it's up to Metro to spend Metro's money. I'm with you there, right? What I need to know, and what I think every Topekan wants to know, is why you choose what you choose when you're deciding what's essential, right? Because I know that we could have really thoughtful conversation about what amount of service for bus, for micro transit, in terms of bike share, what that sort of critical mass that allows that essential service to be met actually is. And I want every Topekan to know that you're all invested in conversations like that, because that's been my experience, and I'm grateful for that. Even though right now there's not a clear solution to what I really think is necessary in Topeka, I believe you when you say you're invested in that process. And I just want you to know that. So, and if you have any questions of me, you might have seen that I already talked to the Parks and Rec budget hearing, that we did gather almost 50 people when it was 103, and they gave up their lunch break for it. We've done a lot of grassroots work to try to figure out who would be hurt when bike shares. I don't think bike share is going to stop, so I'm not even going to say that out loud. But who does it affect, so that we can make sure that those people are at the table. And what you guys just did, what we all saw you just do, is have a conversation that reflects who's not in that chair, right? And I am so grateful for that. The fact that we're courageous enough to have a grant program and keep in mind all the time those essential services, that matters.
Mikola, your time has expired.
Okay,
It didn't
sorry.
make a sound. Do you need an extension to your time?
Not unless you have questions. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you so much
Yep.
for your comments.
Yeah.
The next person signed up to speak is Brian Jocks. Or, did I say that right?
It's Jake's.
Jakes, sorry.
And I am also here in part to speak on the Metro Transit piece, and that, again, may not fit into where we are today, but I did want to at least express my thoughts and give you a little bit of my history. I'm a Vermonter by native birth, and moved here to go to law school. I practiced law in Topeka for now almost 20 years. I practice in a large office. We have 5 attorneys in my office that are all younger than me, one of which lives in Topeka, 4 of which live either in Lawrence or Manhattan, and they all drive in to work here in Topeka. We also employ 3 law clerks, 1 in our Lawrence office, 2 in our Topeka office, 2 of which go to Washburn, both of which live in Lawrence. Part of the, I have a 17-year-old daughter. She's getting ready to go to college. We are, as with any parent, you hope that she decides she's going to come back and live very close, because we want to see her, and we want to see grandchildren, and we want to see those kind of things. We look at, what has happened in Topeka and downtown Topeka, and the things that have happened are wonderful. We see growth, we see expansion, we see lofts coming in downtown, we see revitalization of our downtown Topeka. I work on Kansas Avenue, so I get a very good view of all of those things that are happening. But, when we also see things like, the paper reported we had this major employer that was looking at coming to Topeka, and they said, hey, our numbers are not big enough. We're not seeing the growth to warrant looking at coming into Shawnee County. Well, why is that? Why is it that all the young folks in my office live outside of Topeka? Well, I think part of that is that we don't offer the same lifestyles that Manhattan offers and that Lawrence offers. And part of that is that, they have a university that's a little larger than Washburn. But part of that, too, is that they have a culture that allows for outdoor activities, that allows for people to have activities and events and things that are going on. And we have some of those in Topeka, but they're not necessarily geared towards those younger folks. When we look at things like the bike share program, that is allowing and encouraging, saying, look, we are moving forward in this direction. We are taking these actions to try to make our community more inviting to those people that we ultimately want to keep. It's concerning when you see that leaving. One of the announcements that just came out is that Emporia is now starting their own bike share program. And to think that we may lose that in Topeka is a concern. I also look at it from the perspective of saying, we at some point are going to come back to our large corporate neighbors and say, hey, we want you to make other investments in Topeka. When we've made investments in Topeka in the past and those are abandoned, I don't know what would happen to these large group of blue bikes that we have running around the city if that goes away. And then come back and make the next ask, and those corporate neighbors may say, how did you treat our gift last year? So, again, I'm not sure that it's entirely your issue, but I did want to make sure that you were aware and hopefully can provide some support in that direction. So, thank you.
Thank you for your comments. The next person signed up to speak is David Ketterman. Oh,
I'm sorry, yeah, Dick Ketter, but I'm from,
oh,
I live in the Oakland area.
they wrote David, I'm sorry.
She had a pen that wasn't working very well, too, back that up. I live over in Oakland, and I am here to speak today on that bike program. And spoke to you all, I think, 2 weeks ago. And I am here again to discourage funding that program when you consider the subsidy that you're creating with how much it takes to operate that program and the revenue that it brings in. I am all for anything recreation. I've worked in recreation for part of my life, both in public and private. So anything concerning those bike programs, I would consider good, but right now, we can't afford it. I understand that possibly the money that could be saved from dropping that program would be used to either maintenance of the current buses that we have or even possible purchase of other buses. But I operated a not-for-profit for 3.5 years in Lawrence. And when you're in a situation like that, you go out and beat the woods. I'm all for the group that wants to keep this bike thing going here in town. But maybe it's time that they get out and try to find the corporate sponsors. I know they're out there. I got them in Lawrence. But you have to go out and literally beat the bushes to find them. And I think, as the gentleman before me just spoke, the current business population here in town wants to see something like that going on. I agree. Downtown, I didn't think I'd ever see that revived the way it's come about in no-toe. I'd have bet money against it, not more than 2 or 3 years ago. But it's working out. But I think this bike program maybe is just a little bit too much of an extension. I know it's not a great deal of money, but anything that we can save right now to be put, what was number E there on the agenda, that was a great discussion. There's some money that could be used, I'm not saying for that, but you see what I'm talking about, Council? We need every penny we've got for some of the other projects that have to be taken care of, and I didn't feel the bike program was one of them. And if there are no questions, that's everything I have on that.
Thank you for your comments. That concludes the public discussion with regards to the budget amendments. At this point in time, the floor is open for any council member that, after hearing the community comments and the comments that City Manager Trout made, are there any amendments that the council would like to bring forward?
Mayor, I don't have an amendment, but I have a comment. I don't recall requesting that the bikes be canceled, and I don't see that as being our fault. Who makes that call? Is that done by the board of directors at the Metro? And so whoever's putting out the false information and filling our inboxes, they really need to be directing that over to the board of directors at the Topeka Metro. Is that right?
That is correct, sir.
Thank you.
Councilman Jensen?
Thank you, Your Honor. So I, too, will offer a couple of quick comments. I've done a lot of work in the past couple of weeks to see what options are available for keeping the Metro operating at its current service level. And it's a tough call on both sides when you're running out of money. I mean, yes, indeed, revenue does go up as people's property values do, but often it doesn't keep pace. We're fortunate to have unions in this town that help balance the needs of workers with the rights of management, but at the same time, there's an expense for that. I mean, if you recall, we just raised one of our union's wages 17%. So if you go up 3% a year in revenue, and then you go up 17% in wages in one contract, that doesn't balance. And all of our government organizations are going to face that exact same issue. Costs are just outpacing revenues. That's just an unfortunate reality. So I want to commend the Metro on making it 10 years with no increase. I think that is quite an amazing feat for a government agency to do. I would give the same commendment to our city staff. Would be our 6th year, I recall, without a budget increase or a mill levy increase. That is quite substantial. I mean, if you talk about good money management, it takes a lot to do that. In some case, I feel bad for the Metro. They're sort of stuck between a rock and a hard place. They don't have an executive director currently. I understand they have fantastic candidates. But changing executive directors at the same time you're trying to show the community how you've balanced your budget and explain why, that's a tough sell. And in the past, and I want to say that I think the staff of the Metro now has done a really good job, but in the past there has been struggles with how they've spent their money. And they've had a relationship problem that they've had to come back and rebuild. So this issue is, what I'm trying to get at is this issue is very multifaceted. It's not just, hey, we went to the council and we asked for more money and they said no. There's a lot more behind that. One thing that I've recently been made aware of that you all may not is that our bike share program originally was done by a company called Social Bikes. That's since been purchased by Uber. Uber is a private company in business to make money. And as you recall, the bike share doesn't make money. So there are big concerns with, how that works. Also, I'm a computer guy, and technology changes overnight. The cell phone I bought 2 days ago is now dead. It's useless. I'm kidding, of course. But my point is, the technology that's on those bikes that keeps them from getting stolen, that manages those accounts, that's also getting old, and it's going to need to be replaced at some point. So the technology's old, the company's been bought. There are a lot of challenges with the current bike share program as it sits now, regardless of the funding. So if you add all that together, it creates a really challenging strategy to try and move forward, especially without a permanent executive director there. So I understand there will be continued work in the background, and I thank Mikla for standing up and reminding the world that, just because we're not doing anything at this meeting with this vote, there is a lot of work still going on behind the scenes to try and sort all that and organize it. At the end of the day, the reason this city spun off the bus program and created the Metro as a separate organization was to give them the ability to react quicker and operate in a much more lean and mean fashion. I'm disappointed with how they have handled this particular situation. I don't think that it was wise to launch the public campaign against the council the way they have, and I'm publicly calling them out for that. The board is ultimately responsible for that. The buck stops with them, and this was a bad call, and I'm disappointed in that. I'm still absolutely willing to work with them to try and keep the funding, or keep the bus service operating at its current level. The council has not cut their funding at all. We do need Metro, and I think the bike program is part of that, whether it's a Metro program or a fully standalone program operated by a nonprofit or for-profit company. I do think the bike share program is important for the community, but I'm challenging the Metro board to stand up, to step up, and let's actually get this to stay where it is until we can get an executive director in place and work through these details. Yes, you may have to save a little less each year for the next couple of years while you get somebody in and get their feet under them, but that's absolutely an option, and you can keep your service at its current level without bankrupting yourself, at least for the next couple of years. So my challenge to the Metro board, you can do it, make it happen, our community deserves it. Thank you.
What I would ask the council body at this point in time is the discussion that we're having at this point, as a point of order, is a discussion with regards to the budget amendments. And I do understand that there were individuals signed up to speak in public comment with the intention to advocate for the Metro. And one of the things that we like to do on the council is to honor the citizens that have been taking the time to come and speak, which is why I did not interrupt our citizens. However, what I will tell the council is that if you do want to have some remarks and you have something to share with regards to the Metro, I encourage you to do it during your announcement time, because it's open schedule for us to talk about any issues that are on our mind. But at this point in time, I do want to take us back onto the order that we are trying to work on and focus on the budget amendments. Again, prior to us having the conversation and hearing the public comment, we had certain statements made by City Manager Trout with regards to his desire for this year's budget. I know that there has been conversations, like City Manager stated, with regards to ensuring that we had significant increases for our unions, and that it was only fair that we would consider figuring out and allowing him the discretion of working with the budget so that we could ensure that our staff is also treated with the same dignity of having a raise the way that the rest of our unions are having. But again, he's asking for us to give him the authority to work within that budget to make that happen without increasing the mill levy at this point in time, to include the additional finding of the $40,000. So now that we're back centered with city manager's comments, do we have any specific amendments that anybody in the body would like to bring? Deputy Mayor.
I make a motion to increase the mill levy by 0.5%. And that's half a mill, and it's to help soften the blow for next year. As we heard him say, there's maybe a need to raise them next year. I heard from a lot of people that wanted me to keep asking, so I'm making a motion for half a mill increase.
Do we have a second? Thank you. Councilman Jensen.
I will second for the sake of discussion.
Okay,
Thank you.
discussion on this item. Seeing none, we proceed by voting. Oh.
Just like- Okay. Okay, motion fails. We have 8 no and 1 yes. Mrs. Clear.
Deputy Mayor, I would like to say that I appreciate your courage in trying to bring it forth. The only challenge that I personally have with this is the fact that the staff is not requesting that increase at this time. And it would be challenging for us to arbitrarily put a number and say that we're going to support that number, because it will start a precedent that it would be a dangerous precedent for us in the future. But I love your courage. Additional amendments presented for the budget. Councilwoman Hiller.
I do not have an amendment. I want to reiterate the comments I made last week or whatever it was, 2 weeks ago. I really appreciate the way that the city manager and staff brought the budget forward. I appreciate the time that they've spent with each of us and all of us on the questions and the poking and the prodding and so on. We got the last set of questions back. I got them on Friday, and for some reason you guys didn't get them till today. I've got a couple residual questions, but they're not going to require an amendment or any further discussion right now. So, thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no amendments, I think that at this point in time, we would move to approve the recommended budget.
Right, you would move to the next item, or this item.
Exactly, which is now setting the
Since there's no amendments to approve, move to the next item.
if the clerk would read.
G is establishing a public hearing date of August 13, 2019, for the purpose of hearing and answering objections of taxpayers relating to the proposed City of Topeka 2020 operating budget, setting the maximum expenditure limits, and authorize the publication of the public hearing notice in the Topeka Metro newspaper.
We have a motion, we have heard the direction of the body. At this point in time, this would help us establish the public hearing, which is part of our procedure, to allow the public to come and speak. You have the date in front of you. Are there any comments, questions? Councilwoman Hiller?
Move to approve.
We have a motion for approval. We have a second by Councilmember Jensen. At this point in time, are there questions or comments with regards to setting the date for the public hearing? Seeing none, we proceed by voting.
We have 9 yes.
9 voting yes, the motion passes. We now move on to the non-action items, if the clerk would read.
A is update on staff action regarding the governing body goals and priorities.
City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Governing body, you have in your packet a review of our goals and priorities that were established by you. And this is an update. The updates are listed in red. And so as I look at them, we're doing a lot of good things to work towards accomplishing those goals and priorities, such as when we look at our economic development, plan and proactive development and working with. We obviously have 17th and Wanamaker, 29th and Wanamaker projects, which we approved tonight. We continue to work on the downtown TIF through that process. Multiple CIP projects that support economic development within our community. It's a lot. And rather than belabor the point, I think it's best for you just to look at the items that are there, rather than me reviewing them all. It would just take too long. So, but I will, if you have questions as you review it, either now or after the fact, please contact me. And
City Manager, I thank you so much for bringing this forward. This is one of the things that, for the public that is watching at home, when we first started the term in 2018, one of the first things that we did as a body was that we met and we set forth some goals. And subsequently, we met again with the staff and talked about how we wanted to ensure that at the end of the next 2 years, we had something to show the community with regards to how we're moving on these priorities. Thank you so much for including them in the agenda packet and for us to have an opportunity to take a look at these. Really appreciate the work that we've all been doing together. Councilman Jensen.
I would just reach out to the public and ask for, do a public call for feedback on the goals and priorities. I would be interested in hearing how you all think we're doing out there in Topeka land. We've worked on these.
We had a survey.
Yes, I'm aware we had a survey. That doesn't reach everybody. There are folks that don't interact with technology and that sort of thing. So I would like to see what the folks that couldn't participate in the survey, if they would be willing to reach out to us and share their thoughts with us as well. We did have a survey, you're correct, and we got excellent results there, but that doesn't reach everybody. So I'd like to hear from everybody. Thank you.
Absolutely. Seeing no comments or questions on this item, we move on to item B.
B is discussion and overview of the City of Topeka 2020 Consolidated Annual Action Plan.
City Manager.
thank you, Mayor. I'd like to ask Sasha Hahn, our Neighborhood Relations Director, to make her way forward. Tonight, Sasha will go through the Consolidated Action Plan. This is an additional item that as we go into 2 weeks from now, or on the 13th, it's actually 3 weeks from now, to approve our budget. This will also be part of the approvals that evening. So, Sasha?
Thank you, Your Honor, governing body members. Good evening. Thank you for giving us an opportunity to present to you our proposed 2020 Consolidated Action Plan. You all have heard me give this presentation for a couple of years now, so you remember we have a 5-year plan. That's the overarching goals and long-range plans for the city. And then each year we create an annual budget that has project-specific detail and budgeted totals. We present that to you for consideration. We do have our HUD-funded budget coincided with the city budget. We do that to keep the capital improvement budget pieces of it linked up with the HUD budget funds for our SORT program. So this evening, I am going to show you what we are planning to do for next year. This plan will help secure approximately $6.6 million in capital improvement funds, general funds, and HUD dollars for 2020 and our affordable housing activities in the community. You'll recall each year we talk briefly about the objectives that HUD has: availability and accessibility, affordability, creating economic opportunities, and sustainability, and then of course our priorities here more locally in Topeka. We're interested in the quality of our neighborhoods, home ownership, enhancing housing with supportive services, and of course leveraging other resources. Sorry guys, you know my technological skills here. So which grant funds are included? I do believe we skipped a slide. All right, well, you guys have the pie chart. Keep going here. that shows the breakout of the $6.6 million. We've also included for this presentation the Federal Home Loan Bank funding. It's not technically a part of our HUD budget, but it does comprise a large new funding stream that we don't want to overlook. So of that pie chart, here are the grant funds that are included. We've got CDBG, Community Development Block Grant Funds, Home Investment Partnership Funds, Emergency Services, Emergency Solutions Grant, Shelter Plus Care. The planning grant that is on here is for our Continuum of Care grant. That is one of the few competitive grants that we compete for each year. And that's what funds our Shelter Plus Care program. We were very fortunate. Corey did an excellent job and was able to secure us $56,000 plus in dollars from HUD to do some planning for those Continuum of Care funding to go forward. And then, of course, the $750,000 that we were able to secure for this year to fund a property maintenance rehabilitation program. So I think our presentation is okay. I'm going to touch briefly on the programming that we offer. You guys are able to review these more closely, but you're all familiar with our SORT program. The target area rehabilitation that we use our HUD funding for offers rehabilitation programs to both owner-occupied and rental properties in the target area of those SORT neighborhoods. The owner-occupant program offers up to $30,000. $10,000 of that can be a grant right off the top, depending on when the home was built, and 50% is forgiven after the homeowner resides in the home for 7 years. The remaining 50% is a soft second mortgage. I would point out that all of the liens that we put onto people's property are always interest-free, no payments, no interest until the property changes ownership. The rental property rehab program, we call it our exterior rehab program. That's how it's referred to on the budget document that you all have a copy of. Offers up to $15,000 for repairs, exterior repairs to rental homes in the target areas. The landlord does have to put up the first 10%, that's required, and they have a slightly different forgiveness schedule. Emergency repair. This program is focused on major systems in the home, and this one is targeted specifically at keeping folks in their homes. So we're looking to repair sewer systems, electrical systems, roofs. Those are major systems that would force folks to leave their homes if they didn't have assistance to fix some of those issues. Again, forgiveness on a portion of that, and again, interest-free, no payments until ownership changes. Our accessibility program is again targeted at keeping folks in their homes. If you find yourself with a mobility issue, we have a program that can help keep you in your home if you need things like ramps, widened doorways, bathroom modifications. This program is available to both owner-occupied units and rental units. And again, it's slightly different for owner-occupied and rental. Voluntary demolition. This is one of the very few programs that we have that is not an income qualified restricted program. We do have a different set of kind of guidelines if you meet our income qualifications, but we don't limit it to low-income individuals in the community. This one is really about addressing blight in our neighborhoods. One of the probably best ways, in my opinion, that we use this program is we're often able to partner with one of our local nonprofit affordable housing providers and get some of the land that is the cleared land that's a result of this program into the hands of those partners, and then they can replace the home on it. If the owner of the property builds a home and lives there again, it's 100% grant. So it's, again, you guys can read, but we've got some good provisions for the reuse of that land. Topeka Opportunity to Own. This program is targeting home ownership in the community. You've seen these details before. It offers up to $30,000 in rehabilitation dollars for newly acquired homes for low-income home buyers. One slight change that we made to it for 2019 and going forward, the purchase price used to be capped at $65,000. We raised it to $75,000 to try to capture a little wider net in terms of the areas that folks could be locating in. This program is limited geographically, though, to the area included in our neighborhood revitalization program. Community housing development organizations have a huge place in my heart. I love these partners. We do excellent work in the community with them. The two CHOTOs that we currently have are Cornerstone of Topeka and Topeka Habitat for Humanity. I could go on and on all night with you to tell you about all the excellent projects that we do with them. But just real briefly, HUD does require that we set aside 15% of our home investment partnership funds to fund the CHOTOs. You'll see in the budget detail, we like to put a little bit more than 15% there because we're really able to do some powerful stuff in the neighborhoods with these partners. And in my opinion, they do a much more efficient and effective job of building new affordable housing than the city was doing before we were solely partnering with them for our infill activity. A couple examples of homes that we've built in the community with our partners. So our emergency solutions grant, this one is targeting prevention of homelessness. We each year do an RFP we release an RFP, and agencies that are working on the prevention of homelessness apply each year. These program funds are used for rapid rehousing in the event that folks find themselves in a homeless situation, rent assistance to keep folks from becoming homeless. In some cases, there's some utility assistance if folks have a big utility bill that would prevent them from being able to get into a housing unit. The agencies can provide things like that. So this is a really good program. We wish there was more money available from HUD, but it definitely helps those agencies that are keeping folks housed each year. Continuum of Care, this is the competitive grant program that we participate in each year through HUD, and this is what funds our Shelter Plus Care program. You'll see later in the presentation, we're housing over 500 households a year with this program. It's a great program that assists folks with diagnosed severe and persistent mental health illness or chronic substance abuse or HIV and AIDS to find and secure permanent housing so that they can deal with the other issues that they're facing with their life. Federal Home Loan Bank grant, you guys will remember we were super excited to secure the $750,000 from Federal Home Loan Bank and what we did was we created a rehabilitation program that is geared specifically for low-income individuals that are homeowners in the community that have unresolved property maintenance housing cases. So you do have to have an open, active housing case with our property maintenance division to be eligible to apply for this. This program is slightly different than our HUD-funded programs, as Federal Home Loan Bank sets it up as a straight grant. So the folks that are fortunate enough to qualify and secure this program through the city are not required to repay those dollars, and it offers up to $20,000 in rehabilitation funding. One of my favorite slides in the whole presentation. This is the stuff that you all were able to achieve in the community last year with our affordable housing and general fund, of course, funding. Just touch briefly, couple of my favorite numbers on this, 109 housing and rehabilitation projects last year. I'm proud of that. I think that's an impressive number. 212 individuals received home buyer counseling through our partner HCCI. 530 households at risk of homelessness were assisted through the Shelter Plus Care program. The social service grant program assisted an estimated 21,000 individuals in the community last year. And finally, the support services or support funding that we provide to the neighborhood improvement associations benefits approximately 17,000 residents in the neighborhoods of Topeka. So just a snapshot of our funding levels over time. We wish those lines were going up, but they're not. And then how did we involve the community? We've worked hard every year to expand our reach to get public input on this plan and the way that we use the funds. Here's what we did this year. If you're interested in the comments that we received from each of these various meetings in the community, those start on page 27 of the consolidated action plan that you have included in your packet if you'd like to read them. You also received a notice of our publication for the public hearing that will be held at the August 13th meeting. I would remind you this one is slightly different from the way that you do your city operating budget. You guys don't approve a resolution that authorizes the publication and sets that hearing date. We just time it with the publication of the operating budget publication for the public hearing, and we have it on the same night. That's part of how those budgets are linked to the end. Be delighted to answer questions.
Deputy Mayor.
Very thorough. I do have a question back on, there's a couple of them. The emergency solution grants and the emergency repair, are those income, is there an income guideline on those for the emergency repair and
I'm sorry, yes. Emergency repair program and the ESG funds are going to agencies that are helping folks that are low income or zero income in the community. The only program that we offer that is not tied to an income qualification is voluntary demolition.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Seeing no additional comments, Councilwoman Hiller.
Thank you. Mayor. Could you talk for a moment about the Federal Home Loan Bank money? I keep forgetting about it when people ask me if there's something they can apply for, and I'm just kicking myself. But where are we with the spending of the $750,000, and what are the prospects for getting future dollars at that level or some level?
So, I should have known you were going to ask me that. I believe that we're over 30 applications. I can't recall exactly how many have been approved so far, but we're definitely on target to commit those funds prior to the end of this year. I can provide the detailed information in terms of number of applications and those that have been approved to the city manager so that he can get it to you all. We can apply every year for those funds. Since this is the first year that we've piloted the program, basically, we kind of wanted to test drive it before, so we have not applied for 2020 funding yet. We wanted to be sure that we could expend all of these dollars. We actually have 2 years with Federal Home Loan Bank, but the good news is that they've raised the dollar amount that's available through that program to $1 million. So we do plan to apply again next year for 2021 funding, and you can count on the fact that we'll be asking for $1 million.
That's wonderful, and I was noticing what's printed in here is that 20% of the applicants must reside in the neighborhood revitalization area. Mm-hmm. Isn't that, don't we tend to target more than 80% of our money to that area, correct? So are we expecting to do many outside what would be the CDBG target area?
I would be highly surprised if there are many applications outside of that neighborhood revitalization area, but Federal Home Loan Bank has a different set of rules, as it were. So whereas we can restrict the use of our HUD funding to the designated low-income neighborhoods, the NIAs, in the case of Federal Home Loan Bank, it's a different set of rules. So we can't necessarily restrict all of those dollars to a geographic area that we understand is inhabited by higher percentages of low-income individuals.
And that's okay. I hadn't caught that before, but I know when we tried to decide about the various target areas and Toto as well, you know, one of the things we've seen is a lot of the houses that are the most run down in our neighborhoods aren't even rentals. They're homeowners who got older and couldn't manage keeping up the home. So that's kind of cool to have that flexibility as well. I had one other question, and that I had sent in a set to the city and got answers back on Friday. And one of the items that was mentioned in the budget application was that you all had changed from, I think, either 3 or 4 to 7 admin people, and I had asked a question about that, and the answer I got back, which I assume you wrote, was that you've changed some of the positions. Could you talk about that a little bit?
So when neighborhood...
Or it's in motion anyway.
Sure. When Neighborhood Relations was created originally, there were 2 positions that were pulled out of what was HND. So the Community Engagement Coordinator, which is the support staff person to the Neighborhood Improvement Associations, and then the Inmate Crew Coordinator. Those 2 used to be housed in that HND group, which morphed into Housing Services, but they were pulled over into Community Engagement Division. We haven't added any FTEs to our total number. What we did in the current year was we took 1 unfilled inspector position from our Housing Services Division, and with the city manager's support, we shifted that over to our Community Engagement Division. That position will be the new support staff to the NIA groups, and the current position that serves in that will serve in a more overarching, longer range planning. Right now, she spends a bulk of her time with NIA communications and newsletter processing. And those are very important things, but we have a lot of work to do. That, if you recall the NeighborWorks assessment that we had done, those are the goals that we're moving towards. So we'd like to offer a lot more community building, capacity building, neighborhood revitalization type of support to the neighborhoods, so that we're not just working on newsletters, although they are very important. There are many other things that we'd like to be doing with those neighborhoods. So that was that's what drove that decision to get support from the city manager to shift that FTE out of Housing Services and into Community Engagement.
Okay, well, that, I didn't know about it, and I knew you were doing all this rehab and so on, so that's good news. We haven't heard much in terms of reports on the NeighborWorks training. It kind of pops up a little bit, but you've been doing that through the year, right?
Yes, ma'am. We've
With
had
staff and
2
with
so far
community?
this year. We offered 1, not exclusively, but very, very focused on the neighborhood improvement associations. We also opened it to some of our nonprofit partners in the community because we had so many seats to fill, and once we offered it to the NIAs and got their response, we had some empty seats. So we offered it to partners in the community. We had a second NeighborWorks training that was targeted to senior staff in our own organization, as well as that level of staffing in partner organizations throughout the community. And we'll have 1 more of those trainings in October that'll be targeted at that same group, senior staff in the city organization, and then our peers in some of those other organizations throughout the community. And I would tell you that at our July training, the coordinator of all of that training from NeighborWorks offered us scholarships to the Seattle NeighborWorks conference in December. So we'll be excited to share those opportunities, not only with our own staff, but with others in the community that we feel would be key to go with us to Seattle.
I'm really happy to hear that. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Can you walk me through, because I'm not sure I understand, if there is a working I want to know what we do for the working poor. Like if there's a single mother, 2 children, they make a couple thousand over poverty level, what are our guidelines? What do we do to help those people?
So depending on the program, sure that I don't misspeak here for you. Depending on the program, there are different levels, sort of poverty. I'm probably not saying that in the right way, but our programs have various kind of thresholds that we can help folks at. Some of them are targeted to the very, very low income or no income, and then others are a little higher. You'll notice that the Federal Home Loan Bank program in particular has a higher threshold than our HUD-funded programming. But you would be surprised the dollar amount that a person can bring home annually and still qualify for our programs.
Okay, good, because I didn't want someone to go, oh, you know, I'm above the level and then just give up.
I'll provide that information to the city manager as well, that he can
Okay, I
share
wanna
out
make
with you
sure
all,
they-
that shows it's by family size, so however many people are in your family, but they're surprisingly high income levels. I mean, not what you'd think.
Right. Okay, good, thank you.
Additional comments or questions? Seeing none, Sasha, thank you for your
Thank you.
presentation. At this point in time, we move forward with the announcements. If the city clerk would read.
There are no meeting on the 31st or the 6th.
City manager?
Thank you, Mayor. First one is, I want to remind everybody that Friday, our shark exhibit is opening, and the little sharks are swimming around now and here in town to get ready to wow our folks. I guess the last thing I have is I want to thank each of you for the dialogue and comments that you've provided as we've gone through the process leading up to the consideration of amendments. It's been very fruitful to be able to have those conversations and be able to work through issues as they've come about. And we look forward to the meeting in the 13th to get final approval.
Thank you, city manager. You put in my head baby shark. I don't thank you for that. So my first comment was going to be to thank the city manager and Jessica Lamendola and Nick, who have worked really hard on the budget process, engaging with all of us. I don't think that in the history of this body, we have ever had the opportunity to come with amendments and that there hasn't been people with a list of amendments that they've brought that we've had to wrestle all night. And that's efficiency. I want to also thank our staff, because as we have heard from our constituents, that productivity is an important thing. I think that sometimes we do ourselves a disservice that we don't celebrate all the things that we're doing in our community with the limited resources that we have. And just listen to the numbers that city manager was sharing before we talked about the budget. Your community is working to be productive. And we're not perfect by any means. And it doesn't mean that we're not going to keep on looking for ways of executing with more excellence, more services. But I think that we are in a critical point in which, to the individuals that are looking at these seats for the election process that's coming up, one of the things that we're going to have a discussion on is there's a mill levy discussion that's going to happen. And that's why I said that it was very courageous for Councilwoman Claire Deputy Mayor Claire to bring up the topic, but I think that that's something that we cannot stop talking about. 6 years, we have not raised the mill levy for 6 years. And as we look at how we continue building in our community and doing the things that our citizens are asking us for, we have a responsibility to deliver to them the services that they're requesting, and that costs money. I'm gonna sound like Councilman Jensen here. Sorry that I did that. Just kidding. The other thing that I wanted to say is I want to thank the people that came to speak with regards to the Metro, and I really appreciate the comments that were made by some of the council members. I agree that these are very difficult times. I have been extremely openly supportive to the Metro bikes, but I've done so with the understanding that I know what the responsibility of this council is. If and when at the point in time that this item comes back to the council, it is the council's responsibility to make a determination whether to increase the mill levy to a certain level to provide that support. However, it is very unfair that the council has put the burden that we were the ones that were eliminating a program that is so beloved in our community. And it seems like this is not the first time. This is the second time that we've had some really critical conversations with regards to the way that the advocacy has occurred. If instead of it being in partnership, we've had council members that have received notices that are being distributed with money that is paid for through the Metro, telling people to call the council members because we're going to cut services. And the reality is that this is not the way that we work in partnership. We are partners in our community. To me, the Topeka Metro bikes are a system of equity. They're important because there's individuals that may not be able to get to work. And believe it or not, whether I get on my bike or not get on my bike to go to work, there's a lot of people that do it. Just because some of us don't get to see those bikes in action, I know that they're in action. We had Carol Coletta here, nationally known individual, talking to us, and the first thing that she did when she came to the community, you could ask Councilwoman Hiller. She said, "Oh, I saw your bikes, and I got on the bike and I rode to the river to see what we were going to talk about." So these are things that are important, but what I don't want is for the discussion between one body and the other to become so negative that at some point in time, it impedes the ability for this body to have a conversation that is productive without taking into account the challenges that we've already faced. Because if you can't win for losing, then the conversation is not worth having. And that's not where this body is at. I think that you guys have seen today that we're a pretty resilient body that has the willingness to have some pretty tough conversations, but I think that it's time that we address each other with courtesy on both sides and with fairness. And that goes for all the bodies. That goes for the way that we talk about the state and the federal government and the way that we talk with our commissioners. It's something that we need to work on as a community. We are one community. We need to work together. So, and final comment that I will make tonight is that I am having the delight of taking two young Topeka leaders of the Topeka Youth Council. The U.S. Conference of Mayors is going to pay for all of their expenses, and they're going to get to meet with really cool mayors like the mayor of L.A. and mayors in other communities that have other youth councils as well. So these young individuals are going to get to go to Los Angeles, meet other mayors that have their youth councils, and also have conversations with other youth council members about best practices. We recently had a youth council meeting. Y'all need to go back and check it out. Those students were talking about mental health issues in a way that I wish that most people talk about them. And the next subject that they chose to talk about is gun violence. And it's not about demonizing weaponry. They want to learn about the perspectives, and they have actually extended an invitation to the Shawnee County delegation, to Council Member Steve Watkins, Councilwoman Sharice Davids, Representative Senator Moran, and they're going to extend the invitation as well to Senator Roberts. They want to have everybody in this room to talk about what concerns them, and that was their idea. These young people keep blowing me away, and I just want to thank the parents that are encouraging their kids to participate in this council, the city manager for supporting it, because he's here, our staff is here. And I want to encourage you that in September, when we have our next meeting, that you guys come, because it's going to be interesting. Councilman Padilla.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll keep it brief. I just want to thank all my fellow council members, city manager, Lisa Robertson, the mayor, for your guidance in our discussions this evening. I appreciate all the input, and I think it was done in a way that was, keep it respectful and understanding. So thank you very much for your comments. That's all.
Councilman Jensen.
It's been a while since I've given you all a Hunter update, and I think it's very fitting that you bring up Baby Shark, because not only do I get stuck listening to that all the time, but now Hunter's getting teeth and he's biting everything. So we're watching Baby Sharks. There's baby sharks at the zoo, and Hunter's becoming one. Oh my. Have a great week, everybody.
Mays. Councilman Cohen. Councilman Lesser. Councilwoman Hiller.
Well, I'll run through this quickly, but I assume that the rest of you have had the last 2 weeks like mine, and I think it's fair for the citizens to know as well. I mean, I tried to make a list. I have been swamped with 2 weeks of 12th Street, streets in general, water issues, metro bikes, buses, social service issues, red light runners, the police, and other police issues, and the budget, and Parks and Rec. And it has been just, I need to get on Facebook and give somebody an update because I haven't done it, but oh my. And
Secretary Lawrence.
well, I was going to get to that. and so on the one hand, it's been very overwhelming. On the other hand, it's like, this is what we wanted to have happen, to have the city moving, to have the issues going, to have people calling us, emailing us, stopping us in the grocery store and at the hardware store and wherever. So it's been overwhelming, but it's been good. And like I say, other people haven't run through it, but I imagine all of you have had that same volume. Highlights beyond that are that I got to take family and a 3.5-year-old to the zoo. It wasn't a public event or a grown-ups event. I was just there with my family at the zoo. And despite the emails that we've gotten recently and other times, the first thing she wanted to see was the elephants. And they were out and having a good time. So that was a relief and nice. I did get to participate last Monday, in Carol Coletta's visit about the riverfront. And that was well attended, just so all of you know, with quite a variety of people, the right people to be their partners and potential partners. And she really broke it open, I would have to say, in terms of challenging us about structure and vision. And there have already been a variety of kind of come to Jesus moments about, okay, we need to move this. And so I would suggest that you all watch for action. I was really pleased that the county, they were in budget hearings that day, but everybody that was the right people came over as soon as they got done and really got engaged as well. So that was really exciting. And then the Polk Quincy Viaduct drive-through in conversation with Secretary John Lawrence here in Kansas was yesterday. And also the right people literally on the bus. She was so direct with us about, she started out, I should say, by saying, I love this job. She was the lead on doing the last 10-year plan. And so she understands community engagement around Kansas, what we want to do. She was very direct about what she's told the people that are in line now for the end of the 10-year, the prior 10 years, how much she wants them to work together in order to see if they can get other money into their projects or otherwise trim them, to loosen up money for the people that are in line, and has already been successful in getting 30 million loosened up in that way. And then she was very direct about what's going to work, both in terms of coalitions, in terms of packaging projects, and so on, to be at the head of the line. We've got work to do, but they will work too. She's going all over the state saying, we're Kansas. We need to work together to put this plan together, prioritize it, and make it work. It was really direct and refreshing. And again, I think, of course, getting the viaduct done relates to downtown, relates to riverfront, relates to neighborhoods, relates to everything. But to have both of those happen within a week was really major. And on a little different note, I was at Brown v. Board on Friday night for the opening reception for the new fiber art exhibit called Jim Crow Row. You missed it, the opportunity to have all but one of the artists themselves there telling about their work. But it is very powerful, and I encourage people to get there. Jim Crow Row is a term that Langston Hughes came up with. But the artist is Marta. I'm going to have her name wrong. Marta Johnson, and she's from Lawrence, and she makes quilts and tells stories in quilts. But there's a whole row from the Me Too movement that's about sexual violence and depicts how women told their stories about being victims in that way. Just really powerful to have it here. It's here through August 30th, so there's time to get over there. And I'm hoping we can get Marta back. For those who missed that, it was a small crowd. There was a black women quilters convocation going on in Kansas City at the time, and that helped to get all the artists here. It was great. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor?
Despite, or in spite of, the weather of 115 degrees and a detour on River Road, the fiesta went well, went on. And you know what I noticed this year was a lot more decorations on the houses. That's kind of fun to see those, so went well. Over till next year.
Councilwoman Ortiz?
Thank you. Mayor, first I want to apologize to my fellow council members and to city staff. I think Brenda would probably be the only one to remember that when we start talking about budget, we'd be here till between 11 and 2 o'clock in the morning. So I want to apologize for you guys not being able to experience that. Also, Brenda could probably testify, and I think I'll bring one of my old books I ran across that I've been cleaning up. I don't know what's missing in here, Brenda, because our books were probably 3 times as big as this. So we carried around a big budget book. We went late at night. We even had Subway sandwiches. So I want to apologize to my colleagues for not being able to experience that, because it was quite an experience, wasn't it, Brenda? Yes, it was. And sometimes I just think we're going to go back, but we haven't. So anyway, I do sometimes I wonder what's missing. What is it? But anyway, I just wanted to say that. So to get out of here at a decent hour is mind-boggling to me, and not just one night. It would lead up to it, all the conversations, and even the last night. Now the last night was really, really good, wasn't it, Brenda? And I'd always call in sick the next morning because we'd be so late. So anyway, I can't do that anymore because I know what time I'm getting out of here. So I just wanted to mention that. And yes, the fiesta did go over well. And I just sincerely want to say this. I seen some this year, and I don't know if it's because I'm getting older, a little bit older, but I seen some hardworking people. Some of our officers that came that did not get paid, that were there to make sure that everything went well, and some other people that make it happen and that just are hardworking people just to make that go by. And one of those is Councilman Padilla, and him and his wife were there in the heat, just talking to people and welcoming them to our city, and I respect you for that, and I thank you for that. Because that's what it's about, because there's just all kind of people floating around there. But, there was a lot of people that volunteered their time from people in the food sales and everywhere. Everybody didn't get paid, but at the end, it was very successful. Thank you.
All right, we now move on to the public comment section of the meeting. The first person to speak is Ronnie Joe Longren.
Good evening, governing body. My name is Ronnie Longren. You can address me using the pronouns he, him. I am a fourth-generation Topeka, a combat veteran living with PTSD, and I'm speaking to this group to request a ban on all sales and discharge of fireworks in the city limits. Although the council shortened the amount of days fireworks were available from June 28th to July 8th, many neighborhoods were subject to a barrage of loud periodic booms as well as residual smoke and trash. Some neighborhoods are still hearing explosions around them. There were 14 reported dog attacks, according to an article published in the Topeka Capital Journal, Monday, July 15th. And the animal shelters are filled to the point where the adoption fees are being lowered. While the article chooses to make no mention of any possible effect fireworks might have had on our pet population, I find it odd that one week the city was given some sort of award for being pet friendly, and the week after there was a list of jabs at dog owners and their children. As a veteran living with post-traumatic stress disorder, I can personally tell you that the amount of noise and disruption from a few hours of incendiary devices is manageable. But that is not what I and much of Topeka experienced this year. After 3 nights in a row of bombardment from households around me, I did call and report the discharge of fireworks. The officer I spoke to leveled with me about the lack of priority for these calls and the inability of the officers to do little more than encourage people to obey the municipal code. He also admitted that unless he was following up on a complaint, that he takes no action when he sees the discharge of fireworks on his patrols. I engage with neighbors on nextdoor.com, conversations I have printed off and brought with me today. I emailed the city council. I appreciate Karen Heller emailing me back and forwarding my concerns to Chief Cochran. My purpose was not only to gather information about any benefit the city was gaining from allowing out-of-state vendors to set up inside the city limits, but to access why the municipal code itself had no teeth and therefore is more of a hindrance to our police force than a help. It distresses me to hear that out-of-state vendors are giving deep discounts. Not only this distresses me because local charities with fireworks stands are losing our dollars, but the notion of buying large quantities of fireworks when the legal window to use them is 2 days. In my youth, there was a ban on fireworks in the city limits. Various locals would simply set up stands outside the city limits and in accordance with county and state laws on July 3rd and 4th. From year to year, I don't recall having so many dog attacks, so much low-level smoke and constant noise. That ban may have been lifted 14 years ago to improve tax revenue, but I can't imagine it has brought enough money to ignore the physical and emotional distress of the residents of Topeka. I do not believe that shortening the window for sales or even adding larger fines to the municipal code would help. I simply feel I feel we need an outright ban. We need to impose heavy fines on those caught with possession. I believe that the fire department would also support this move, and police could possibly focus on gunshots instead of fireworks. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for your comments. The next person signed up to speak is Nicholas Saunders.
Respectfully pass. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person signed up to speak is Dick Ketterman.
Hello again. I come to you on a couple of matters, and one of them just now came up. I agree with him in the owner of pets. The 4th of July is not a great time for us. I have 2 German Shepherds. One of them's totally deaf, and the other one is going deaf, but he heard enough that it was bothering him, and my 2 cats I didn't see for 2 days. So, and they're indoor cats. But I think the city of Lawrence has pulled that off, hasn't it? They banned fireworks within the city limits. Maybe even in Douglas County, I don't know, but I'm pretty sure in the city limits they don't allow sales of fireworks anymore, or the firing of them. The second thing I'm up here with, approximately 5 to 6 weeks ago, what I thought was a city crew, and it may have been, I don't know, came out to my home in Oakland there and dug up my water meter to replace it. They found it leaked. They had gone up and down from 900 bar showers all the way up to the very north end, checking on meters, and with mine they found that it was leaking and they had to replace the whole thing. Huge hole, created mounds and mounds of dirt. And they finally got that done, put in a new sidewalk or section of sidewalk they had to replace, and then left the dirt in the piles, and then a gap off the sidewalks, and I'm guessing those are probably 2 or 3 inch deep sidewalk concrete with a gap like that. So if somebody walking along that at night steps off to the side, they're going to snap or break an ankle. So I had called the Chamber's office the first time, spoke with Liz and was telling her about it, and also that I was discouraged because they had laid the dirt back out and hadn't shown any signs of doing anything else. And I spoke with her at that time about, she said, well, they'll come out and put some grass seed down. Well, if you talk to any expert, this is not the right time of the year to try to plant grass seed. So I had asked if it was possible to get, and I don't even think of what they're called, the rolls of grass? Sod. And she said, no, that's not going to be possible. At that time, I asked to have my councilperson call me, and I've checked with it 3 times, and I've never gotten a call back, and that's the reason why I'm talking to you as a council. If you have constituents like me that aren't computer savvy or at least don't communicate through emails and so forth, I'm a voice person. I want to talk to somebody or visit somebody in person. There's still a lot of us out there, and probably a lot in Oakland, simply because we've got an older group of people over there, I think. But still, I have...
You still have a minute.
I still have the problem of the half of my right-of-way being bare right now. And I have, I have a beautiful lawn. And I'd kind of like to find out what can be done about it. But I know I was given advice today to get a hold of the city clerk and proceed that way. Is that what happens? Okay. So that's all I have.
Thank you for your comments, sir. The last person signed up to speak is Mr. Clark Trammell.
Well, good evening again, and again, I seem to be wrapping up the evening at these meetings. So it's been fun and enjoyable, so thank you for your time. I may need just a couple of extra minutes. I'm going to warn you ahead of time because I'm here to share information with you that is going and swirling around the city and the council that isn't directly on the table of things that you discuss. But they're items of great importance, and Commissioner Hiller mentioned a lot of that. Mayor De La Isla, you mentioned the relationships between the county and the city and others. That's part of it. And there's a lot going on in this community that I am aware of, that I'm here not to talk at you, but I'm here to share with you things that I know and should be important to this body that you need to be aware of if you're not. I gave you some handouts, and we're going to go through those very quickly. Something that I presented to you all before is local government pushes property tax to record levels. I think that information was given to you last time, and what I'm going to share with you is everything I'm talking about and everything that you've talked about all overlaps with each other. It's all connected. It isn't just this standalone or that standalone, but they all relate to each other, to the economy, to the community, to the quality of life, to the quality of the place, to decisions for grants, and how we all handle our business. So there's an aspect that we're aware of. We've got a tight budget, high taxes, and all of how that influences and affects everything else we do. In front of you, I gave you a 2019 document that says County Health Rankings and Roadmaps. You need to take a look at that, and it comes from a very credible resource here for the state, and it talks about our health factors, which add to high taxes, health issues with statistics we don't like going up, statistics we do like, some going down, but they all impact how people see our community and whether they want to live here or not. The gentleman came and left that talked about TMTA and the fact that what younger people aren't moving here because they don't see the activities that this community has to offer. Now, I'm going to address that in another conversation dealing with Parks and Rec. But I absolutely kind of disagree with that because I find there's so much going on in this city that I don't have time to figure out where I want to go other than where my wife tells me we're going to go. And being active with the Jayhawk Theater and going to the park with my grandkids, et cetera, and reading all the musical things going on, this city is alive. And we've got a new center coming in downtown, the park area, that's going to create a lot more energy. We're having all the right discussion, and what's really exciting about this that I have seen the last several times I've been here, and yes, I have enjoyed this meeting also, Mr. Jensen, just like I did the last one. The reason being is we're having great conversation. We're getting to the meat of things. We're having the kind of discussion that allows you to make good decisions that the public can understand. And I applaud you for that because that's something that we've needed for a long time. And it's taking place with the topics that need to be addressed. The next thing I want to talk to you about is TMTA, very quickly. TMTA transportation is the key. It's like the blood in your body to your heart. The better transportation is, the better this community will be. We need to find ways to have dialogue and the connectivity between you and TMTA and the County Commission and Parks and Rec to talk about the things that are going on that impact this city. If you're funding something, you have a right to talk to them about, where's your business plan? What are you doing? How's it happening? Why isn't it happening? Give them input. Give them guidance and direction. You have a right to do that. Our mill levies that you approve entitled you to have a voice at that table. I would hope that you would take advantage of that. May I have 2 more minutes, please?
Do we have a motion to extend Mr. Trammell to 2 minutes? Councilman Jensen? Councilwoman Ortiz? We now proceed by voting.
We have 8 yes.
Thank you.
8 having voting yes. Mr. Trammell, you have 2 minutes.
I appreciate it. The next thing is Parks and Rec. If any of you watch TV or saw the county commission meeting with the engaged conversation I had with Chairman Archer, you heard what he said about what he thinks about you all through street maintenance. I was very offended by that, on your behalf, my behalf, our behalf. But it also relates to Parks and Rec. I can say that, you can't, so I'm expressing that myself to you. Parks and Rec, mission statement. Shawnee County Parks and Recreation is an essential service established to improve quality of life for all residents of the county by proactively responding to changing demographics, emerging trends, while maximizing all available resources and providing quality parks, recreation facilities, and programs that enhance the residents' health, promotes economic vitality, etc. I gave you all a copy of that. A lot of you, with the exception of Councilwoman Hiller, probably have never seen this contract that you have, and Councilwoman Ortiz, with Parks and Rec. This is not a very well-written document. One more minute?
You still have a minute.
Oh, thank you. I better talk fast. In this document, which was approved and implemented back in August 4th, is a contract. But in it, it doesn't give you the ability to get engaged with what's going on with the parks in this community, how they're spending your money, how they are or are not managing those parks, which are in the city, which is part of our quality of life and quality of place. In that contract, there are several things. And I want to make it clear, I did not tell Commissioner Archer or the county commission that we ought to move the responsibility for Parks and Rec to the city. That was something that was spun by the news media. I did not say that. However, if that's the process, then maybe we ought to look at it. But in this, it says, by agreement, city's option, county convey real property back to the city. So you have teeth in the relationship if you want it. Effective January 1, the county will become solely responsible for all maintenance and upkeep associated with the county's use and ownership. I'm just almost there. I'm that close.
If you would like to just wrap up your comments,
I
Mr.
will.
Trammell.
Ownership, maintenance, and operation. So they have control of everything. The city, however, your part, will continue to enforce city ordinances and provide the same level of law enforcement. So we oversee what goes on in the parks while they oversee the maintenance. Well, the maintenance is a wreck. And all I can tell you is the last part of my comment to this is there is a part of this contract that relates to an advisory board. It is a contract that advisory board, Shawnee County Parks and Rec Advisory Board, is to be discussed with and brought into the conversation anytime that there is a request by Parks and Rec Department shall consist of the advisory board regarding those proposals for the
Mr. Trammell, you
construction,
have
et
to wrap
cetera.
up.
So that is not happening, and I want you all to be aware of that, and they're very, very concerned, the people that run that board. It's our city, it's our parks that they're managing as a contractor. I hope you all will get engaged with the conversation, both there and TMTA. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you for your comments. At this point in time, the meeting is adjourned. Oh, we have an executive session? Do we have to have it today? Can I call, but I can call the meeting back to order, though.
We're all sitting right here.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think.
Well, it's gotta wait 3 weeks. Don't make us have to call a special meeting.
Exactly, just for an executive session.
Well, I mean, the law's clear. We have to notice that they have a meeting.
That's right, that's right. You can't just call me, you never know.
We have to call a violation.
I am so sorry.
Okay, we're, watch for a memo. Doug is gonna go through things, but we have an issue that we have to address.
Good news or bad news?